Hi, I'm Sunny Dean.
And I'm Scott Drakeford.
And this is the Publishing Radio podcast. In 2022, we both launched debut novels in the same genre with the same publisher in the same year. But despite having very similar starts, our books and subsequently each of our careers went in very different directions.
That pattern repeats itself throughout the industry over and over. Why do some books succeed while others seem to be dead on arrival?
In this podcast, we aim to answer these questions and many more, along with how to build and maintain an author career.
Everyone signing a contract deserves to know what they're really signing up for. In an industry that loves its secrets, we'll be sharing real details from real people. We'll cover the gamut of life as a Big Five published author, from agents to publishing contracts, finances, and more.
I don't know if you know the premise or if it helps to know, or we can just launch it.
Just launch in. I never want to know, ever.
Okay, that's fine. Welcome to the Publishing Radio podcast, and this week we have on with us RJ Barker.
Hello.
And hello, RJ. And I'd heard of RJ's books for a while as a kind of fantasy reader, and I remember when I first sort of encountered him, with air quotes around that, is when Leeds Writer Circle sent around some random email that had all of the authors who are part of the circle, and it had RJ's website, and I saw that and I thought, oh my god, there's a famous fantasy writer in my local writers group. How did that happen? And after I signed with my editor, Lindsay, RJ reached out with a really lovely email just to say hello and assure me that I would be in good hands, because RJ is another Lindsay author originally, although
she left me.
Yeah, she left you
off to do tour, because she was Orbit.
Yeah,
but she's lovely. Yes. And I love her.
Yeah, RJ, you've got a really fairly long publishing journey, and various things that kind of cropped up in that. And if you feel like introducing yourself and talking about some of that in a general way, it's just a starting point, that would be great.
Yeah. Do you want me to tell you how I ended up an author from the beginning?
Yeah.
I'll skip my teenage years, because they're not really relevant. I did make one big mistake in my teenage years, which is worth warning people about. That about 14 or 15, I decided I was going to be a rock star. So I stopped going to school, which is not good. And it took me quite a long time to realise that my lack of musical talent was always going to hold me back. Great hair when I was a teenager, but it just didn't make up for it. So I played in bands for years, and eventually I was in one that were really good. And I kind of thought, I can't do this. But I knew I wanted to do something creative, and I'd always had a book in my pocket. So I decided I was going to be a novelist. And I think if I'd actually known how difficult it was at that point, I would not have bothered, because it's a lot of work. And of course, my English was terrible, so I think it took 13 years of writing and pretending to writing again, getting put off, writing more. Then I was quite, this sounds mad, but I promise you it works. I was quite lucky that I got chronically ill. I was really poorly and too poorly to work, which kind of gave me time to write and really commit to it, which I did. And then I nothing about my journey is helpful to anybody listening. I can just tell you, don't listen to what I'm saying and thinking that's the way to do it. I'll follow the RJ model, because it's rubbish.
Acquire a chronic illness.
It's not that helpful. I made a grand total in 13 years of $5, which I couldn't cash. My bank just said that's not enough money to check. I said, all right, thanks. And then Simon Spanton, who was an editor for Glanks at the time, and now he's with Angry Robot at the moment, and he's lovely. So a short story that I'd written, and it was very Yorkshire, about zombie sheep. And it's scarier than it sounds.
I believe you, I've seen the sheep here.
He got in contact with me and said, that story's too good to go on your blog where no one will read it. I was like, thanks, Simon. Can I put it on the Glanks blog? And he did. And then he said, have you got anything longer that I can read? And I went, yes. And I thought, brilliant, I'm going to get published in Simon Span Fungal Lang. So I sent him something and he hated it. But he did say one of his authors might like it, which was the fantasy writer Stephen Diaz. And he did, and he put me in touch with his agent. And his agent also hated it, but wanted to know if I had anything else. I just finished this science fiction novel and I sent it to his agent. And his agent read it and went, all right, came back and went, all right, I'm just going to be straight with you that this is absolutely brilliant for the first third and the rest is terrible. But if you're willing to rewrite it, let's have a go at it. And we did, and it went to market and it didn't sell, which sounds like it should be really disappointing, but my mind doesn't work like that because I couldn't concentrate at all while I was on submission. I was just like, I don't know what to do. Do I write a different book? Do I write more of that book? Am I actually, can I write? What is writing? I don't know. I'm scared of words now. And then when he rang me up and said, oh, I'm really sorry this book hasn't sold, I was just like, all right, cool, I can go again. And I was like a dog out the traps. And I wrote what would become Age of Assassins in 6 weeks and sent it to my agent.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I'm quick when I'm sometimes, and sometimes I'm not. And I sent it to my agent. He came back and he said, good news and bad news. Good news, I think you've got something. Bad news, I'm dropping you as a client. Which was not perfect what you want to hear.
Okay.
But
Wow.
he sort of put me in touch with I made a list of agents. And he said, yeah, try all of those. And then at the end he said, oh, and also try Ed Wilson, Johnson and Alcock, who is on Twitter, and he's called Literary Horror on Twitter, and I had never thought of trying him because I just think I'm not a literary writer. I didn't quite finish school. I'm a dirty little genre writer. That's what I love. But I sent it to Ed, and he was back in touch within a week, and he was just like, yeah, I've read the first chapter. I want this. Contact all the other agents and tell them. And I signed up with him, and it's kind of been gravy ever since. It's really weird. It's kind of worked out, and now I kind of realise how stupid I was 13 years ago when I sat there and went, well, I'm going to sign with a big publisher or nothing. And I just look back and think, you idiot, you absolute idiot. You should have got a proper job. That's what you should have done. And gone to college or something, you fool. But it's too late now. Wasted.
I mean, if it's any consolation, going to university didn't do shit for me. So. Although it killed some time, and it got me into the country, I will say that. So I came in on a student visa, and I had a partial scholarship to Leeds. And my entire plan with university is this is just stalling until I figure out something I can do, because I'm not very good at like anything. I kind of missed out when they were handing out the special autism skills day or something. So. But yeah, it's not helped in writing, certainly.
What was the course you did at
sure.
university? What?
I did English because I'm boring and I can't. I mean, I actually failed 5th grade English when I was at school. I don't know what that equivalent would be in UK.
All the best people do.
Because I can't do grammar. I remember as well. Like I've told people this before. I had an agent say to me once when reading one of my fulls, you know, if you write like this, people will think you failed 5th grade English. And I thought, well, I have, so you've got me pegged. But yeah, I'm even worse at maths and kind of science as well. And just, I can't do people, which means most jobs are out of the question.
I love hearing you list all these things that you think you're bad at, because
Yeah.
talk
You're
to the
very
people around
personable.
you. Yeah, you're fantastic
Yeah.
at several of those things. I can't attest to any math or science skills, but I have read your writing, and
My partner can. My partner can attest to
okay,
it.
well I'll talk to Lee sometime, but
I think my agent would agree with your agent about my English, because I regularly get emails and they're just the email equivalent of a sigh. It's just I'm going through this now, RJ, and I'm like, oh, you're not happy, and it's my fault.
It's artistic. It can be artistic. Also, well, it wasn't my agent that said that, just to clear. I don't want him to think too badly of it. It was an agent I queried who didn't sign me because they thought that my voice was middle grade and my writing was terrible. Anyway, you know, it's subjective, isn't it?
evidently.
When people say that a writer's grammar is bad, once you're published, that just becomes being a very voicey writer. Just, they've got a unique
absolutely.
style. Yeah, that's because I don't understand how it works.
Yeah, prepositions are for amateurs.
Yeah. The weirdest thing is now I think I do kind of understand how it works, because a copy editor will the first copy edit will teach you that just for seeing how it works and realising how much you don't want to do that, not what I want.
They have a deep level of language that we can only marvel at.
Yeah, but so, it's wrong.
Very quickly, what instrument did you play when you were in your band?
Well, being lazy, I kind of thought, well, the bass has only got 4 strings, that's got to be easier, hasn't it? So I went for the bass guitar. And in theory, it's easier, but you do need a good sense of timing, which I'm completely lacking in. And there were a couple of times where my band was playing one song and I was playing something else. And I just didn't realise. And things like that happened quite a lot. I had a really good time.
Very, very quickly, have you heard of Shed 7?
Yes, I'm aware of it.
I will have to tell you, or I'll get my partner to tell you in person sometime, the story of how he was in the Shed 7 group before they were Shed 7. And basically they kicked him out because he kept skipping practice to go ring bells, because he did a bit of bell ringing for a while. And then after they kicked him out, they became famous.
Oh, damn.
Well, clearly he was holding them back or something. Hi, Lee, if you're listening to this.
I've got a friend whose claim to fame is that he kicked Rick Witter, the singer from Shed 7, in the back of the knee and made him spill his drink. It was an accident, but that's his claim to fame, that he accidentally kicked him in a crowded pub and made him spill his pint. That's what he would always say when Shed 7 came on. This guy's made him spill his drink.
We've all got something we need to hang on to. Yeah, so when you set out to start writing, did you have a sense of what success looked like? And that's a question I've been thinking about a lot, because we do often have guests on who they talk about having a particular shape to the dream they're chasing and what it means to them and what it represents.
Well, I really like sort of crime fiction. That's probably my greatest love. So I'd watched a lot, and not hate it, of Murder, She Wrote. So to me, success as a writer meant finishing my manuscript in one go and then going to the Bahamas to see my editor. And that in my head.
Okay.
It's,
and getting a cruise.
Yeah.
You finished on
time. And that's not what it's like at all. But on a more sort of realistic level, I'm not a very thinky person. I'm more a doing person. I very much live in the now. I don't think about what's gone. And I try not to think about what's going to happen, because writing is a precarious beast. And you can't not be aware of that, really. But I never really thought past getting a book out, and that was it. Getting a book out was success for me. To have done that was just like, whoa, I've been published. That was more than I ever really suspected would happen. So that was a win. And then the first year of my book coming out, and we went all over England doing stuff with my wife. We kind of just at one point said it doesn't matter if this is it, because we have had the best year ever. It's just been fantastic. We met all these lovely people, and that was it. And now, of course, I'm expecting millions and a yacht. So that's
millions and
next,
a yacht, yeah.
And a yacht, yeah. That's my next goal. That's my next goal.
That yacht's just the bonus.
Yeah. That's the bonus from my publisher once I've earned the millions.
13 years is a long time to strive. Did that slog ever get you down? You talk about being in the moment, but were there ever moments you're thinking like, this is a bad idea? I never thought about
walking away, because I'm just too stupid to do that. I just think no. Everyone's telling me I'm terrible at this thing, but I will get better. And I did short stories for such a long time, and that was quite disheartening that I never ever got anywhere near selling. And then sort of later on you realise actually short stories is quite a weird thing.
Difficult.
Yeah, it's difficult, and there are markets that do kind of, they seem like actually in hindsight maybe they had a bit of a stable of authors. I don't know if it's still the same now, but and then when I got
Oh no, I was just going to say, but C.C. Finley said once that when he was still editor of Fantasy and Science Fiction magazine, that 60% of his submissions were from professional authors, as in 60% of stories in his slush pile were from people who already had a track record of publishing with pro magazines, which is staggering. Because when you're querying novels, probably 90% of people in that slush pile are not professional authors, more than.
Why are so many people doing this?
It's meant. I think if you ever stop and really think about it, you just wouldn't do it, because the odds of success are just. Oh no, this is uplifting for people listening, isn't it? You can do it, listener. You can do it. But a lot of those other people listening, they won't. But,
This is why I didn't do it. This is why I didn't do it for years and years, because I need to know the worst that happens. So I went and looked up all the stories of failure, and when I was in my 20s, and I read this article that I still reread every few years called "On Being a Failed Writer" by Stanley Rogowski, and it was and I just had this cemented in my brain that this is not a good idea and you shouldn't do it, and therefore I didn't do writing for a very long time as a result of that. So
I think being really ill, apart from giving me time, another thing, I'm quite a laissez-faire person in general. I'm kind of like, let's just see what happens today. I'm not making plans. That's not my thing. But I mean, I have Crohn's disease, and I was really ill. I weighed about 6 stone, and I couldn't eat. My wife referred to me as looking like a skeleton, and her thing's skinny men, and she does sometimes say, "Oh, I know you were dying, but you looked so good." Which is
for American listeners, 6 stone is about 84 pounds.
Oh my God! Wow.
Yeah, and I'm 6 foot tall, so I was like nothing, and in constant agony, just constant pain. I'm not looking for sympathy either. That's not it's no one's fault. It just was. But I've already kind of got a bar for how bad things can get, and it's very, very low. And my book not doing well, it's not going to be as bad as that. So it's kind of I kind of go into things, and then I kind of have this mindset that the only way to fail is not to do it. So but I am still utterly terrified every time a new book comes out. Just it goes slightly mental every single time. I'm surprised my agent doesn't block me.
Yeah. Well, I find your story very interesting. So you wrote for 13 years on and off, it sounds like. Yeah. You wrote a few stories that were rejected or people made fun of them in other ways. You had an agent drop you.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you end up with your current agent, you write Age of Assassins, and then you've gone on a tear of how many books now since Age of Assassins published?
Yeah, 7th fantasy, and there's two crime novels as well, and there's another. I have another 4 in the tubes, so to speak. I write a lot.
Yeah, well, and that's quite obvious. Yeah, that was one of my comments. Is since 2017 you've published 8 or 9 or whatever it is that you've published, but they're all very, very well received by everyone I've ever heard from. And obviously you've sold well enough to keep doing this, which is not a given in this business. Do you think there was some sort of turning point for you as a writer, or do you think that it was really more of a matter of just getting into the system and the system helped you find an audience that might have been there all along?
There was a kind of an amount of, if you keep doing a thing, you're going to get better at it. And there's a writer called Jason Arnott who wrote a brilliant book called The Last Days of Jack Sparks, which it infuriates me and makes me incredibly jealous every time I read it, and I have to ring him up and tell him how much I hate him. But I always say there's a huge element of luck to becoming a professional writer, and what he says is, yeah, there is, but the longer you keep at it, the smaller the pool of people that luck can apply to becomes, which I think is a really nice thing, and that's not the question you were asking, so I'm just going to go back a little bit. But
no, yeah, that's a very good point.
There is there's the graft of writing and reading and writing and trying to get better each time. And then with my first agent, when we took apart the science fiction book and put it back together, I think I learnt a lot about how, not so much how stories work, because I think I knew that. I think as a reader, you kind of intrinsically do understand that. It's just tapping into it. But I think I saw the skeletons of it in a different way after that. And the Age of Assassins just kind of clicked in my head. I can't describe it in any useful, technical way as just saying that the whole story appeared in my head. Actually, I spoke to an editor called Matilda Imler, who was with Head of Zeus at the time, and she really liked my science fiction novel, but sadly she moved to New Zealand and left her job. And we got completely off what we were meant to be talking about, which was my book, and on to Agatha Christie.
That's fine, keep wandering.
Yeah, we love wandering.
Yeah, and we started talking about Agatha Christie, and I was saying, I'd love to read a fantasy novel with Agatha Christie. And I think that was a moment mine just went bang, and that was Age of Assassins. And the book you read is more or less the book I wrote, apart from the fact that there's a big sort of battle at the end, which there wasn't. My version ended with revealing who was going to do it, because it's a who's going to do it. I
hadn't even thought of it in those terms, because I do like Agatha Christie, and I have read Age of Assassins.
But it's a proper, like, they all get together at the end and they go, and this is how it was done, and they tell you that, and that's where it ended. And my agent went, it's a fantasy novel, you've got to have a battle. You've got to have a battle. It's just the way things work. And I was like, I don't want to write a battle. I was like, you have to. Okay then. So I did that. And I think the harder things I've learned are things like covers and stuff like that, and stepping back and letting the publisher do their thing.
Did your title get changed?
Yes.
Out of curiosity?
Yes, it did.
Because the reason why I asked that is the title and the content surprised me a little bit. Like, I read the book and I thought, this is very different from what I was expecting in a way. It felt like a marketing title.
It absolutely is. Yeah, it's 100% a marketing title. It was called The Uncrowned Heir, first of all, which I really liked. And then my editor...
I do like that.
I like that a lot, yeah.
Yeah. My editor said, look, you're not going to like this, but there is an amount of pedants who are going to just turn around and say, aren't all heirs technically uncrowned? I'm just like, yes, but you can have a crown prince. And he was like, yeah, we're not having that. And I was like, okay, we need to think of a new title. And then I was desperate to call it All Deaths Well Intentioned, which I really liked, and I think it fits with the feel of the book, and kind of there's an air of melancholy to it, and all of it went too crimey, too history-y, not fantasy enough. And I think I did about 50 or 60 different titles until eventually the Orbit got to the place that they've been going from the beginning, which was, we really want it to have the word assassin in the title, because an amount of people will just buy a book that says assassin, and if it has assassin in the title, then... So I was like, all right then. So that Age of Assassins is not my title, it's theirs. But it has the word assassin on it 6 times on the cover. It's got Age of Assassins, to catch an assassin, use an assassin, and there's more than that. It's just like, you completely lose all meaning to the word assassin after it. You're just like, I don't know. It's just noises.
No, it's funny. I nearly didn't read it because it had assassin in the title. I thought, I'm not an assassin book reader, but people I know recommended and liked it, and that's what I tend to go off for books, as recommendations, as my friends know my tastes. So, I think, mine was originally called Paper Flesh, which was precious to me because the first line that I ever wrote of the book was it was some quote where Devon says about, she was nothing more than the sum of all the paper flesh she'd consumed, and that was like the first thing I'd written the whole book around.
It's a really good title though, is The Book Eaters.
I see their wisdom in it now, but I really struggled at the time.
Yeah,
I really struggled, and
I was the same.
I think because I felt like it was generic, and then it took me... I had this long bit where I wrestled with it, and I realised that my book is probably always more special to me than it will be to other people, and that in a sense my book is generic, like on some level. And that, when they explain all the stuff I didn't know, they're like, there's a whole group of readers that will buy books about books, and that's the kind of reader you want for this book. And I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing. And my agent was like, and they have algorithms where they test out different titles and keywords, and I was like, holy shit.
And now it's done really well, so you have to like sit there going, they were right, which is really annoying. It's like, you were right. It's one of those books that you read and you're just, as an author, within like the first couple of chapters thinking, this is such a good idea, I wish I'd thought of this. I'm very cross with you, Sunny. Very cross about this.
Sorry.
So I mean, I hated the cover for the Assassin's book as well. I just.
See, I got the ebooks. I don't even remember your cover because I just don't pay attention on ebooks.
It's a hooded man. I was just going, but there are no hooded people in the entire book. The whole point is they're not. They're like ninja. They turn up as workmen. They're not. And they were like, yeah, hooded man. And I was like, I really want to change this, and they were going, well, you can change the colour. Well, but my agent did the thing that the agents are really good at, in that he sat me down and said, look, just suck it up. This is they're right, and you have to accept that's what it's going to be. And I know that is. He said, and he just went, you are being precious about what you think this book is, where they are trying to sell it to people who will buy it for that cover and discover they love it, even though it's not what they expect. And I was like, oh, okay. So, and my editor said a really good thing. She said, this is not the cover and title for the book you have written, but a lot of people will buy it, and the people you've written this book for will discover it through word of mouth, not the cover and the title, which was a kind of really nice thing for her to say. But it might just have been to get me to shut up. There is.
Well, and I think it has a lot to do, titles specifically, but I think it has a lot to do with simplifying a book down to that generic term or what have you is what publishers have honed their process around, and that's how they know how to market. And so, they kind of have created their own little environment where that's what works for them and other things may not. And when I hear algorithm from a publisher, I just have to roll my eyes a little bit after having worked with them, because what I'm guessing they're doing is going to like Google keywords, or there's a service called Ahrefs, Ahrefs, where you can search for certain terms or keywords, and it will return interest in those keywords over time, right? Because I'm pretty goddamn sure that publishers aren't running like legit focus groups and stuff. If they are, they should tell us that, right? Because that's amazing. I wish that publishers would run like actual focus groups, actual studies on these terms, on their covers, literally just anything, honestly. But I'm guessing that their algorithm is logging onto a website that looks at what terms are most popular and most searched at the moment, or over recent history, and aligning with those. That's my guess.
Well, I'll say that's what my agent said. I've never actually heard that from either publisher directly. I do think the cover is often very editor dependent. That they have a sense of like, the sci-fi books have ships on them, and that kind of thing that publishers love to do. But it's a lot of it is about editor vision, because I think from both my editors, one of the first things they said when I finally got to talk to them was like, oh, this is the kind of thing we're imagining for the cover, and they have like a clear picture. And I guess if they don't, you're probably in trouble, because that's when you're most likely to get stuck with stock photos and clip art.
But the weird thing was, for the Bone Ships, it was the opposite way, in that I didn't have a title for that, and Bone Ships was just my placeholder tag, because I thought, well, I'm not going to get to call it what I want anyway, so I'll just...
That was the same approach I had for my second book. As I thought, right, I'm not going to get attached to it, so I won't name it, and I just ended up calling the file Ghost Fucker, which has like been a running joke on this podcast, because my editors refer to this manuscript as Ghost Fucker, and we cannot publish it like that.
If they publish that book with that title, I will take back every single bad thing I've ever said about publishers. Every single bad thing, I will take it back.
Yeah. They will not put that in Woolworths, though.
No. My UK editor had a chat with me earlier this year because my UK editor changed, one moved on, a new one took over, and I think she sat down quite seriously and said, "Look, I'm really sorry, but we just can't have Ghost Fucker's real title." And I was like, no, that's a joke, it's fine. So it will have a title, but we're still working on it.
Oh my god!
Orbit would just like, we love the button ships, and like, what? Yeah, we love the button ships. That's what we want to call it. And then the other two books, we kind of had to play off because I really, really wanted the last book to be called The Bone Ship's Wake, and I was just going, look, it's lovely and poetic, and wake means that they're waking, and it's the wake of a ship, and it's after a funeral, and it's all of those things. And they were like, can we call the second one Call of the Bone Ships? I was like, can I get off what I want if you do that? And they were like, okay. I was like, yes, can't go with that. There was that. Yeah. And then the new one, that again is not my title for it.
Oh no! What did you call it?
It's called Deep Forest right up until the end, and then they hated it. They were just like, yeah, that's a folk horror title, not a fantasy title. But they wanted it to be Wildwood, which I didn't like that because it felt too generic to me. I didn't really like that at all, and it meant, because it's a place within the book is the weird wood that was Deep Forest all the way through it, and I had to change it all like at the last minute to make it work with the title. But I do like it now. It's weird. I've come around to that one. I really like that title. They were right there. It works. I hate when they're right. Them.
So imposter syndrome, I think you've written a bit about on your blog about kind of doubt and its presence in your writing, and I guess I wanted to ask you a bit about imposter syndrome, what you think of it, if you still have it, if you find it helpful, or if you think you'll ever get rid of it.
Yeah, I do have it. I don't like the term. I mean, I know it's a term, but I don't really like the term imposter syndrome because I just doubt my ability, and it's not to do with not going to school. It's just a feeling that I always think the best way of describing it is that there is a better writer just over the hill that I'm chasing, and I can't read my old books because I'm just appalled by them. I'm just how could I? And people really like them, so I know it's me. And every time a new book comes out, I go slightly mad. I think I go a little bit loopy. I just email my agent and what if everybody hates it and all the reviews give it 1 star? What do we do then? Do I just have to go live in a hole? And and then we have the discussion with either him or my editor where they go, you do realise you have said this about every book you have published. Every single one you have sat there gone, this is a terrible book. This is the worst thing I've ever done. No one's going to like it. And I was like, maybe there's a pattern there. And I think part of that is kind of self-rejecting it, and then if everybody hates it, it doesn't matter because I was like, I thought it was rubbish anyway, so it's okay, and I'm on to a new thing. And also what I will do is I will write another book, because I've wrote Gods of the Weird Wood, since we got it all edited. I wrote the second one, and it's sort of coming up to the 6 months before publishing and starting to put things out, and that's when I start thinking, well, it's entirely different, because there's a sensible thing to do. You'll know this is to do something that's like the thing you did before, because that's what people want. They want something that's like the thing you did before, and I just can't. I wish I could, but I can't. My brain just goes, no, let's do something entirely different. Let's do some different voice, different way of doing it, and you know an amount of your readers are going to just pick that up and go, this is not what I wanted from him at all. Yeah.
It works for Jeff Vandermeer. He's talked about that because all of his books are so different. He says with every book he picks up readers and loses them. And I suppose he doesn't care because he's got loads of movies and stuff.
Yeah, I've not got that cushion. I just think, what? Then we get to the point of it coming up and I'm just thinking, what have I done? What have I done? Why didn't I just do more ships? I should have done more ships. So then what I do is I write a new novel. I write an entirely new novel and give it to my agent so that if everybody hates it, it all goes wrong, I've got something ready to go. So that's how my brain works. Instead of sort of hiding in a hole, my imposter syndrome makes me write more to try and create a safety net. And I write the new novels really quickly, because the idea that I had was for like another fantasy murder mystery, and I think I wrote it in like 5 weeks. Because I was just like, this is really clear, I understand it, and I'm gone, and I desperately do not want to think about this new book that's coming out. So I'm going to think about nothing but this, and I'll write it. And,
Can you guys hear my dog snoring, or is he?
I heard it a little. I thought it was a loud car going by your house.
She's so loud. Sorry.
That's amazing. RJ, if it makes you feel any better, I have a personal pet theory that the writers and artists generally, but writers who do have imposter syndrome and do, doubt their own work, end up being by far the best authors or creators in terms of, I guess, the meaning that I find in their work, even if they claim that there is no meaning to be found and it's all purely commercial. I don't believe it. Sun Yi is a very good example of that.
We don't know what's in our books, I think, a lot of the time.
Yeah, I like that theory too. Yeah.
It's like Richard Adams, about What Ship Down, which is one of the greatest books ever written, has always said it's just a book about rabbits for kids. And he's entirely wrong. And he knows he's wrong, because each chapter is prefaced from quotes from like classics. And he just thinks that is not what you do in a kid's book, Richard Adams. So I don't think he knows what that book's about, and I don't think we do a lot of the time.
Yeah, but also when you're talking about the disliking books as a defense mechanism, and I was going to say that I think I definitely do that, and I know a lot of writers who, when they go on sub, they kind of consciously decide that they don't like that book anymore, because it makes it easier to write off the rejections if you hate it as well, because you hated it first before those editors hated it. So
I hated it before it was cool, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there was a lot of that for Book Eaters. It was like it was written in a bad time, and then I finished it and I thought it's just going to go to shit like the other one, so just get in early with the dislike of this book, and then it doesn't matter what all those stupid reviewers think when they hate it too, and it comes out, and I'm prepared because I've hated it before them.
I think,
and they
liked
writing, it. You have to sit. Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that they liked it, and then when they like it, you have to sit there going, "How can these people get this so wrong?"
Yes, I wonder that all the time.
Yeah.
Why don't they have any taste?
Oh my goodness!
But I think over time you develop the distance from it to see, because I had kind of a revelation when I was speaking to Croncast, who were lovely, and I was talking about, and it kind of filtered down afterwards. I was talking about what Gods of the Weirdwood is about, which is a really difficult thing, because fantasy books are like, it's a journey, and Gods of the Weirdwood is not. It's about a man who's been betrayed and cannot trust, and it sticks in that bit of the hero's journey where you refuse the call, and it keeps going around in circles and coming back to the same place, where the call is there, and he will not have it because he can't trust and he can't see what he really needs from life. And it's quite I would say a difficult book. It's not like one that invites the reader in. You have to sort of stay with it, because it's infuriating at points, and it's really deliberate, but maybe not infuriating, but well no,
sell it to readers. Read my deliberately infuriating book.
Yeah, it's infuriating. It's really slow. I've described it a few times as it's about a man who doesn't go anywhere. That's the plot because of the weird. But
you might want to workshop that one.
I should try and describe it in a more exciting fashion so people will buy it, because this is meant to be marketed. No, it is about a man who doesn't go anywhere, and he's not very nice either. But there's a very funny monk.
Okay.
And there's a weasel. There's kind of a weasel dog thing in it, which everyone loves. Everyone
loves a pet.
Don't get me started on. Yeah, and weasels. Weasels get a really bad rep in fiction. They're always made out to be the bad guys because they're the working classes animal is the weasel, and that's unfair. So I'm team weasel. Oh,
I'll come back to the chronic illness in a second, but I just wanted to ask very quickly, like, did you have any issues pitching the Bound Ships books? Because I remember you briefly talking on Twitter about the fact that everyone always said, like, Navy books and ship stories don't sell in fantasy. And that's the one that got you the awards.
Yeah, I didn't. Jenny, my editor, I love my editor Jenny because she kind of. I wrote the Assassin's books, and I think she just loved where I took all the trilogy with it. That it didn't kind of do what people expected, and I used it to tell someone's whole life story. And I think she just had an enormous amount of trust with it because I didn't do a pitch as such. I sent her a 5-page prose poem that was in the voice of the book. and I just thought, yeah, she's probably not going to agree to that. But she just came back and said, yeah, I'm down for this. Do it. So I did. And I found out that traditionally ship books don't sell. And they're often the grave of fantasy writers. From another writer who mentioned it to me the week before the Bone Ships came out, and I was just like, that's not good timing. I'm in that. I hate this book.
Why would you say that?
Yeah, it was just like an offhand remark. I was like, oh, thanks, but it did all right, even though it was a shit book, and I think. And it was. I got an email from not an email, just a message from another writer who was really dejected, and I understand why. That because he'd been writing a shit book just as mine was announced, and he was just like, "Oh no, that's killed mine." And I was like, "No, it's not how it works." So either my book is going to die a death, and I have saved you from dying that death later on, or my book's going to do all right, and there's going to be quite a few shit books come out afterwards. And because that's the way it works. Yeah, there's been some really good ones. I'm quite jealous. So I wish I thought of that. That's a really good idea. But yeah, I didn't pitch it in a sensible way at all. And Orbit never wavered. Jenny was just like my champion for it. She would just say, yeah, we're doing this.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's brilliant. And yeah, I guess just very briefly on the chronic illness, I was kind of curious. I don't know if curious is the right word. But it is something that some authors live with. And I just kind of wondered like what your day looks like and what the challenges are of that intersecting with writing.
My days are usually the same. I'm going to tell you something that appalls all writers in a minute, and I apologise and just think badly of me because every writer I've met that I said this to does. I get up and I have some coffee. Because I like the ritual of making coffee than I actually like coffee itself, because it's actually quite unpleasant. But I've got into that habit. And then I sit, and in the morning I write a minimum of 1,000 words, and that's what I do. And sometimes it's more. Every so often it's less. My chronic illness, its biggest thing, as long as it's not hurting, it is tiredness. But those 2 or 3 hours in the morning, I'm pretty good generally, no matter how ill I am. And even when I am really tired, writing seems to be the last thing that goes. But the terrible thing that I do is while I'm writing, I watch television at the same time, and it's how I watch all the things that I feel I should be paying attention to as a genre author, but I'm not particularly interested in, like the Marvel like superhero series. Is I put them on the television and I watch them as I'm doing things. And most writers go, "You watch television? How dare you? How with people?" But I think that I started seriously writing when my son was a baby, and I was like stay-at-home dad because obviously I wasn't going to go out to work. And my wife was like, "Well, you're not getting away with doing nothing. You can look after the child. Here, it's yours." So I'm quite used to being interrupted as part of my process. So television works really well for me. It upsets all other writers. They're just like, no, silence or maybe soundtrack music, nothing else.
I'm not going to be prescriptive about your method if it works for you. Clearly, I mean, you're getting words out a lot faster than I do in a given year. So.
I don't think many people are writing one book in a matter of weeks, let alone repeating that over and over.
I get quite worried I might burn out, but there's been no there's a real sense of joy for me in writing. It is not work.
Yeah.
I sit there and literally, when our first book came out, I can't remember who it was, and I wouldn't say if I could, but another writer said to me, "Oh, you're enjoying it now, but you'll become jaded very quickly." It's a grinder, and it gets to everybody. But I don't. I just wake up every morning and just think, oh, I actually get to do this. Somebody pays me to sit and do this nonsense. And there are hundreds of thousands of people who would love to be doing this. And there's a real sense of joy in it. And to create is something I've always dreamed of being able to do since I was about 15. And it was music, and then it was writing. But and I can't draw, so that was always off the table.
Oh, yeah, no, I think that a lot as well, where, I sometimes get people ask me, like, oh, do you not find it restrictive, especially in trad publishing? And it's like, are you kidding? Like, have you had every day job you have is going to be way more restrictive than publishing. Yeah. And I remember writing bits and pieces in, like, my work breaks and stuff in the brief period where I had a hideous proper job that I hated. And the demands that publishing puts on me so far are nothing compared to that. It's like, oh, I might have to bend on a title and I can't call it something stupid like Ghost Fucker. Well, that's okay, because I still got to write a book and get paid for it, even if it gets called, I don't know.
You could write another book, Sonia, and then self-publish Ghost Fucker with its proper title.
I do like to hear that, though, because not that you suffer. I like to hear that there is, a pervasive and remaining joy in the process, because that's how I feel about writing. And I do think that some people take writing as a career a little too seriously, and maybe that's their own defense mechanism and attempt to, ward off the inevitable downfall that finds most authors. But I find the exact same thing. I'm very productive when I'm writing something that I want to be writing, and that, it is fun to do in the moment. And when I go to something that I feel is necessary or maybe financially prudent or what have you, that's when it becomes a grind. So I think having found that nice union of being creatively fulfilling, and obviously people are finding joy in your work when they're reading it, that's very nice to hear.
Well, I think, you get a load of those memes on writer Twitter or writer Facebook, which are like, oh, what's the one thing writers hate doing? Actually writing. And I just, at the risk of sounding like an asshole, I never identify those at all. I always read them and think, no, I really like it. Like, I like queries, I like drafting, I like looking at outlines. Synopses are a pain, but I don't mind doing them that much. You get stuck, yes, but in general, the whole process, I love doing it. And I think I've heard a lot of writers, some of the writing gurus will say you have to write every day and all this, and I get why they say that. That's based around the whole develop a habit, and that's assuming that you don't want to write and you're having to force yourself to do it. And I always think, well, I don't write every day, and that works for me because I want to write. So I write when I get the chance. So I'm always happy to show up if there's an opportunity.
And writing trilogies is a weird. I never expected to end up. It's really weird. I never expected to end up writing fantasy trilogies. I expected to end up writing crime or science fiction, because they're mainly what I read now. But they're really weird because there's an immense amount of freedom in the first book because you've got so much space over 3 books, so you can do what you want. You can build this amazing thing. But then by the time you get to the 3rd book, you are constrained by your own rules, and I hate it. I hate being told what to do, even when it's me. And I was, why did I come up with this stupid idea? It's all awful, and you have to be checking back to the earlier books and that's it's always partway in book 3 where I just think next time I will make a Bible for my book, so I've got all the stuff I need, and I don't have to keep going back and seeing what all these things were, and I never ever do. Never. It's just not in my makeup.
Well, I'm all out of general questions, so I'll hand over to you, Scott, in case you've got any. We were just kind of... Some of our episodes are very focused, like with Kerry and the statistical stuff, we went in with, like, bullet points, and some of them, like with Pete and Nick, I think we were just more conversational, so...
I'm not going to help you with statistics.
No, that's fine. The episode we just recorded is a lady that did a dissertation on what makes books sell, and she had it like broken down into an algorithm and factors and all this cool stuff. And it was
marketing?
Every factor was marketing related. Would you believe?
Yeah.
I think every question I had has been answered in the course of the discussion, but I think maybe one remaining that you may or may not want to answer, RJ, is around marketing. So I'm just curious, because your books seem to be quite well received by readers. I particularly have heard about you and your work in author circles. You seem to be quite popular with other authors, whether they know you personally or not. They seem to like your work. Have you felt, especially since you're kind of in that class of author who's having to work through a career and isn't just handed a giant career up front, how have you felt your books have been marketed and supported generally, beyond what we've already discussed with covers and titles and things? What has been your general sense of how well your books have been supported by your publisher? And you don't have to answer that if you don't want to.
No. I've never felt not supported, and my publicity officer for the UK, Nazia, is brilliant, massively overworked, as they all are, and absolutely terrifying. I just do what she says, basically. She just sends me emails and says, "You're doing this thing on this date," and I was like, "Okay, then I'm doing that thing on that date." And she sets me up lots, and Orbit are really good, because usually now I'd be doing lots of things, but I've had to say, look, I'm just not well enough at the moment. So they're not actually sending me out that much. And Angie in the US is also, they're just really good, but they do their thing, and I don't really have that much to do with it. I've always been quite upfront with Orbit and my agent. When I signed with my agent, he went, "How much information do you want about what's going on?" And I said, "Well, what I want, Ed, is if you were in trouble and had to embezzle funds from one of your authors, I want to be the one you'd go to first, because I wouldn't notice." So I have no knowledge of what is going on whatsoever. Orbit do this thing every so often where they will send me numbers of books that have sold. That means nothing to me and just worries me. So and you get the Orbit author portal, where you can go in, you can look in real time how your books are selling, and stuff like that, and they send you a password and a login number, which I just deleted the second I got it. I was like, no, I don't think so. That is a quick way to send yourself mad, isn't it?
Okay, so you're not like me, frantically refreshing Author Amazon Central every Friday morning.
No, because
you are smarter than most, RJ.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I can't control it. The only thing I can control is what goes on the page, and so that's what I concentrate on, and I try and ignore everything else. But I will check how many reviews are on Amazon for my books in a kind of slightly obsessive manner.
Logically, I know you're right,
which I'm trying,
but emotionally, I think if I worry about it enough, I can impact it somehow. I just have to worry harder.
You see, that's why I never looked, because once you're in, that's it. It's a trap, and I don't know what.
Thankfully, we have no author portal, but yeah, look at Amazon Author Center.
I don't even know what that is, and I'm not going to thank you if you tell me. So we'll just skip. I won't look now. I'm trained enough now. It's like I don't go to Goodreads.
She was lying. It doesn't exist.
It's not accurate. Yeah. That's the worst bit about looking. It's not accurate. No. So
yeah. So that went all right. But yeah, I don't know why I'm doing all right, and I'm constantly aware that kind of you're only as good as your last book when you're a mid-list author, and it's a it's a weird and precarious feeling, especially when your wife has a whole extension planned. You're just like, oh God, this better be good.
I'll ask this question because I've asked it for a lot of authors now. When did you first hear the term mid-list?
I first heard it, I think, from Pete McLean.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
I think because it's a phrase he uses quite a lot. Or maybe I didn't. I still don't really know what it means. But I just presume it means you've not sold nothing and you're not J.K. Rowling.
It's everybody who isn't a lead title, basically.
Oh. So what's a... See, I don't even know what a lead title is. This is how little I know about
the weasels of the publishing world.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, with the weasels of publishing.
That's the working class.
I might... Is the lead title the one that like going, oh, this is our book for this?
It's the books that get... there's kind of like a gap in advances, marketing. I think. Where mid-list tends to get between like 25 and 50k, depending on the big five imprint, and then the lead titles are the ones that are kind of usually breaking six figures a book, and there's just sort of nothing in between those two ranges, if that makes sense.
The good thing is that so far both my trilogies have earned out, which is because I didn't get massive. I got more money than I've ever seen in my life, but that's quite a low bar. But it was a decent amount of money, and they've earned out. So now I get royalties, which is kind of lovely. If you want, RJ, could you sort of plug yourself, tell people where they would find you if they look for you online, and maybe briefly mention all the books that you've got out if they're happy to look for your trilogies and stuff. I'm on the Slowly Dying Twitter, as if you search RJ Barker, don't search my username because it's just ridiculous. I didn't have any vowels that day. I'm on Blue Sky. Yeah. It's a reference to the goth band Fields of the Nephilim, not a reference to H.P. Lovecraft. Not a big... my website is rjbarker.co.uk, and my books are the Wounded Kingdom trilogy, which are Age of Assassins, Blood of Assassins, and King of Assassins. And as Sunny has pointed out, they have very little to do with assassinating. I don't think there is any. I think there's one assassination in the entire... They're murder mysteries. Loosely based close around... enough. Yeah, but they're loosely based around the story of King Arthur, which very few people... I overjoyed one day when somebody sent me an email saying, are these Arthurian? I was like, yes, they are Arthurian. It's just buried really deeply. And then the Bone Ships, which is the Bone Ships, Call of the Bone Ships and the Bone Ships Wake, and I pitched those as Patrick O'Brien versus Godzilla. They're kind of big naval battles, and it's the story of somebody learning to believe in themselves and kind of becoming a war criminal. But it all works out in the end. And then my newest one is Gods of the Weirdwood, which, as I said, is about a man that doesn't go anywhere. But it's I'm fascinated with landscapes. My first book was the moors. It's all about the moors, and then the next one, Bone Ships, was the sea, and then this one is woods, and it's about forests where there are trees that can take you days to walk around the trunk. They're so big, and you can't see the tops of them, and it's very folklore-y and strange, and it's about people who've been betrayed, learning to trust. There. Oh no! It's the farm boy story. That's what I keep forgetting to say. That's what I meant to say. It's about the farm boy that gets picked up because he's the chosen one, and then it turns out actually he's not. It was someone else. So he goes off. Yeah, he goes off to. He's not the Messiah. He's just another boy. And we join him 30 years into his sulk about that. And that's a bit more exciting than a man doesn't go anywhere in it, a little bit. I'm really bad at pitching. A tiny bit, yeah. I think your editor would approve of that description more. Yeah.
You've been listening to the Publishing Radio Podcast with Sunny Dean and Scott Drakeford. Tune in next time for more in-depth discussion on everything publishing industry. See you later.